So now what we're going to do is find the exact value, which is a fraction. Remember how we have the cosine of a degree? Let me go back. You get a fraction. So remember when we had this? We had the sine of theta equals that. And to get theta, you did the inverse of it. This time I'm saying, hey, here's the sine of a value. Give me the fraction answer. Okay? So I can just go like this in my calculator and go cosine of 210. Oops. Dropped everything, sorry. And it tells me 0.86, whatever. I don't even know what that represents. But it actually tells me to use the unit circle. So let's go. It's cosine of 210. Let's remember that. So we come over here to the unit circle. We go and we find 210 degrees. And I see a point value, negative rad 3 over 2 and negative 1/2. Now, well, what does that mean? Well, remember what I said in the unit circle? The first value represents x, and the second value represents cosine, and the second value represents sine. So that means the cosine of 210 is negative rad 3 over 2. Let's check if I use my calculator. And I go negative rad 3 divided by 2. Oops. Divided by 2. And look at that, it's the 0.866. So is that all I'm really going to have you do? No. Because for right now, we do not have this memorized, and that is not showing you understand. That is just showing you know how to memorize. So how the heck did they even create this unit circle? So this is what we're going to do for each of these problems. I will not be okay with you just giving me the answer from the calculator or from the unit circle. You're going to have to show me work. All right, so I go like this, and I make a graph. 0, 90, 180, 270. I'm actually going to stop there. Why? Because I'm focused on 210. So there's my 210. Which means that's my focus. That's 210 degrees. But what I want you to do is I want you to make a triangle. So how do I make a triangle? Remember from the previous page, you use the reference angle. So now I can go like this and make a triangle. There's my right angle. Well, if this is 210 and this is 180, we need to figure out what that would be. What would that be? 30 degrees. Oh, well, wait a minute. If that's 30 and that's 90, what does this have to be? 60. Okay? So let me make it a little bit better because it's getting a little bit ugly. That's 30 degrees. That's there, and that's 60 degrees. So remember, what goes across from the 30? 1. What goes across from the 60? Rad 3. And what's the hypotenuse? 2. Okay. So that means this is rad. The length from here to here is rad 3. The length from here to here is 1. And the length from here to here is 2. But this is being graphed on an XY axis. So that means when you go to the left, it's negative. When you go down, it's negative, and the hypotenuse is always positive. Now, if we're dealing with cosine, who are we dealing with? Adjacent over hypotenuse. So negative rad 3 over 2 is exactly what the unit circle said. And some of you go, wow, that was a lot. Yes, we're going to do more than one. All right. Let's do this one. Sine of 315. 0, 90, 180, 270, 360. So I know it's somewhere right here. Okay? Now that's the 315, which I like to write there. Okay, so that's my blue. Everything's always based on the reference angle. So who am I focused on, the 0 or the 360? The 360, because that's closer to the 315. I make a vertical line, so now I can connect and make a triangle. So how the heck do I figure out this? Well, if this is 315 and this represents 360, 360 minus 315, 45. And remember on that first page above the unit circle, I have my 30, 60, 90s and 45, 45, 90s? That's the reason. Okay. Oh, and here's my radian to degree and my degree to radian. Okay. So now let's go back here. If that's 45, what's across from the 45? 1. What's across from the other 45? 1. What's the hypotenuse? Rad 2. Okay. When I go to the right, positive. When I go down, negative. And the hypotenuse is always positive. So now sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So that means negative 1 over rad 2. Rad 2, negative rad 2 over 2. Well, let's look. Sine of 315. Let's go to our unit circle. Let's find 315 degrees. There's this one, then this one. Well, remember, first comes cosine, then comes sine. So sine is the second one of 315 is negative rad 2 over 2. And where are we? That's what we got. Okay? You will eventually have to memorize the unit circle, but not this year. So, you're going to show me how to do this with triangles. All right, I don't really do well in radian mode because I haven't memorized it. For me, if I memorized it, I would automatically know that 4 pi over 3 was 240 degrees. I don't have it memorized. So, since I don't have it memorized, I'm going to show my work. This really is 180 because I'm changing it to radian mode. 3 goes into 180 60 times, so it's really cosine of 240 degrees. Okay? Now I'm going to draw my little thing. 0, 90, 180, 270. So my blue is right there. Everything is always based on my reference angle. Now I can make my triangle. If that's 240 and that's 180, I have to subtract them to go, oh, this is 60 degrees. Which means that's my right angle. If that's 60, that's 30. What's across from my 30? 1. What's across from my 60? Rad 3. What's my hypotenuse? 2. When I go to the left, negative. When I go down, negative, and then my hypotenuse. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. Negative 1/2 is my answer. Let's check. Cosine of 240. Cosine of 240, negative 1/2. Because cosine comes first. If I asked for the sine of it, it would be negative rad 3 over 2. Okay, let's try another one. All right, I don't like living in a negative world, so I'm going to find the coterminal by adding 360. So I'm really finding the tan of 300. Draw it. If this is 4, 3, 2, 1 for quadrants, what quadrant is it in? Yes, the fourth quadrant. I don't need to draw it anymore. I'm getting good at it. So that's 300. It's closest to 360. Boom. What's the difference between 360 and 300? 60. That's 60. That's 30. What's across from the 30? 1. What's across from the 60? Rad 3. What's the hypotenuse? 2. Go to the right. 1. Down. Negative hypotenuse. Tan is opposite over adjacent. Let's check tan of 300. Oh, wait a minute. I have the 300 here, but I don't have tan. All they gave me is cosine and sine. Well, remember, this is something I might write over here, is tan is equal to sine over cosine. So then if I go to 300, negative rad 3 over 1, which is negative rad 3, which is what I got. All right. Tell me this in degree mode. I can look over here and I can cheat if I want. 5 pi over 4, 225. Now, I think you're hopefully starting to get the idea that it's either a 30, 60, 90 or a 45, 45, 90. How do you know which one? Okay. Well, if it ends in a 0, because you're subtracting from 60 and 30, it's going to be a 30, 60, 90. If it ends in a 5, it's a 45, 45, 90. You'll also notice some other trends. If you ever see a rad 3, you know you're dealing with a 30, 60, 90. If you're seeing a rad 2, then you know that you're dealing with a 45, 45, 90. You don't have many choices. Now, the rad 2 is the hypotenuse, which means if you're dealing with cosine and it ends in a 5, then it's going to have a rad 2 in the answer. So in a sense, if I was really good, I might go, okay, well, if that's 45, this is 1 negative 1 rad 2, which is 1 over rad 2, which is rad 2 over 2. And some of you go, what? All right, don't worry about it. You don't have to be there. Draw this. 225 is here. Oops, no it's not. Oops, I was in the wrong quadrant. Just kidding. No wonder. You're probably like, what the heck? I was thinking of 3. Okay, so let's try this again. 225 is here. He. Okay. And then it's closest to the reference angle, which is 180. Make your triangle. It's a 45, 45, 90. Left, negative. Down, negative. Rad 2. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, which is negative 1 over rad 2, which is negative rad 2 over 2. Cosine of 225, negative rad 2 over 2. Okay. First thing I'm going to do, put it in degree mode. So that's negative 120. Now I need to find the coterminal. If it ends in a 0, what is it going to be? 30, 60, 90, which means rad 3 is going to be in the answer, isn't it? And you just have to figure out if it's positive or negative. Okay? Well, if this is 240, and by the way, if you're lost on this, then just keep it to this way that I've taught you from the beginning. But if you can kind of do it in your head a little bit, it might make it easier. So sine is opposite. Well, everything opposite is your y. So that would be negative. Okay? So if you look what I'm talking about, look at my third quadrant. So if you look here, look at all my sines, negative, negative, negative. Look at all my cosines, negative, negative, negative. So in the third quadrant, it's always negative, negative. If you look in the second quadrant, cosines are always negative because you go to the left, and sines are always positive. So really what people do is they memorize this, and then it just flips. Do you see how it's similar? That's similar to that one. That's similar to that one. That's similar to that one. And then if you look here, this quadrant is positive. Oops, I'm sorry. This quadrant is positive, positive. And then the fourth quadrant, you go right, positive, down, negative. Look at this. Positive, 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 negative, negative, negative. And do you see how they're repeated? So rad 3, rad 2, this. But honestly, that's just so much of an effort. I'd much rather draw the triangles, and I kind of like math, so I don't mind doing it. But when you get to more advanced math, it's probably just a waste of time. So let's get back to sine of 240. 240 here. What's it closest to? The reference angle 180. That means that's 60, rad 3. 1, 2. Left, negative, down, negative. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. And there's that negative rad 3 over 2. Okay? Let's do these last ones and be good to go. All right, cosine of 360. Well, it's right here. So if you look, in a sense, that's like the point 1, 0, isn't it? Well, shoot, then what does that mean the answer is? Oh, remember the first number is cosine and the second number is sine? So your answer is 1. And how do you know? You plug in cosine of 360 in your calculator and it says 1. All right, tan of 4 pi. That means 360, 720, tan of 1440. But what does that mean? You do 360 one time, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, and you end up right here. So that's 1, 0. Well, if this is cosine and this is sine, what's tan? Oh yeah, tan is sine over cosine. So I do 0 over 1, which is 0. Let's go to the next one. I don't like negatives. I live in a positive world, so I find the coterminal, and I get 90 degrees. So I'm finding the sine of 90 degrees. Well, if this represented 1, 0, and this is 90 degrees, what do you think that's going to be? 0, 1. Right 1, don't go up. Don't go right or left, just go up. If this is cosine and this is sine, what's the sine of 90? 1. We'll go over this in class. Attend my Zooms.